Transformation of this kind goes beyond performing tasks to changing mindsets and attitudes.
Excellent. All right. So which of those definitions works for you, right? What helps you see capacity in a different light relative to the work that we do? Something that you like about these definitions.
Working together.
Working together, right? Yeah.
No one is an island unto themselves. And so when everybody can work together, it just works out for the good of everything in general.
The answer for an organization might not be that they need to change specifically, right? That they need to grow, that they need to build a larger food pantry, or that they need to somehow magically generate more money for energy assistance, right? It may just be that they need to more intentionally partner with another partner in the community, right? With a different organization, that they expand perhaps a little bit of their area of reach, so that now it's a collaboration between two organizations at the right size, meeting the same need to coordinate their efforts in meeting the community's needs. Great example. Other thoughts? We think about conflict. What words come to mind?
Dilemma, issue, argument.
Okay. Is conflict something we want?
Not necessarily. It could be good and bad. Sometimes it can be for the better, and then other times we don't want it. It depends, I think.
Okay.
When I think of conflict, I think of conflict resolution. How am I going to resolve this?
Right.
Yeah, I can to what Nettie's saying. I agree. Like, that's what I mean, like, from the good side of it, because you could have a happy problem or something that's a conflict that you're trying to better or trying to improve. So definitely from both angles, for sure.
Yeah. In my work, I've said more than once, breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. And what's critical there is that all parties are geared toward the breakthrough, right? If we're in a situation, Christian, and you're using sustain language and I'm using change language, we're not oriented in the same direction, are we? Right? So it's going to be more challenging for us to find a breakthrough because you believe that the way things are is better or preferred in some way. So that's, getting on the same page and aligning is really critical. But conflict itself is not negative, right? It gets a bad rep. It's all a matter of how it's resolved, just like Nettie said, the conflict resolution, right? So we talk about levels of conflict and intensity. What are some things that we might look at? Right? In terms of our conflict, Noel, I can see you as a very combative person. And I can joke about that because it's so ridiculous. Oh, Jill, I don't even want to know what happened in office there. All right. So in terms of our conflict, what are different things that impact the intensity of that conflict? I've got a list here. Would you read them? And perhaps there's something else you'd add.
Yeah, so levels of conflict are differences, misunderstandings, disagreements, discord, and polarization. And yeah, I think that some of these are very easily smoothed out and some of them are not. That probably, feeds into the levels of intensity, like just how easily they can be resolved.
Yeah.
And with, as little upset to everything else as possible.
So let's have a chat for a little bit and then we'll open it up to the rest of the group. Okay, Noel? In terms of differences, I gave an example of a difference, right? I'm using change language, Christian's using sustain language. So here's a difference in how we see this problem, right? and you know, how we're viewing the conflict. What might a misunderstanding be?
I think misunderstandings are probably the easiest to smooth out because if it was a miscommunication or someone just interpreted what you said differently or vice versa, as long as both parties are going with an open mind, I think it's very easy to say, I actually meant it this way. I can understand how you interpreted it this way, but I actually meant this. So I think that one can be smoothed out pretty easily as long as both parties are willing to admit to their mistake and be open-minded to whatever's actually happening.
Yeah, as long as both parties are able to, because I've had misunderstandings be about documentation, right? About the way that a grant is supposed to, basically readings on how a grant activity is supposed to be meted out. And it's not something that was easily resolved. I appreciate that you're wired to the positive here and the easy resolution, or maybe painless resolution, but it actually involved getting legal counsel on how we're interpreting this work. And so it involved getting third parties engaged. It involved a much deeper exploration of what was happening, fundamentally what was meant to happen. It ends up that one perspective was correct, but it took a lot of steps in order to get there. What about disagreements?
Do you want me to keep going?
Oh yeah, please.
Okay. Disagreements, I think, are a little bit more tricky because a lot of the time they're based around personal beliefs and the values and morals that someone abides by in their day-to-day. And so disagreements, I don't think are very easily resolved unless, like, especially if there's not a concrete answer that you're looking for, and there's something that's open to interpretation and stuff like that. I think that disagreements can be really difficult.
Yeah. We question everything except for our beliefs, which we never think to question. And until our beliefs are truly challenged, it's difficult. And so because our life experiences are very different, we may end up believing different things. And those things may come in conflict. One of what you have, well, we'll get to that at the end. What about discord?
Can you describe discord a little bit more?
Yeah. Discord, for me, and we could look up a definition, but discord is really kind of active breakdown of communication, right? We are not singing the same song. We are not on the same level about the importance of something or how something should be handled, or I just for whatever reason I don't want to work with you.
Yeah, and I think that's probably when heightened feelings come in, and passion, and really believing that you are right and the other person is wrong.
Yeah.
Regarding whatever the conflict is about. So I think that those are also really tricky because obviously it got to that point of discord because of a person's moral ground and what they're willing to stand on and how far they're willing to go standing on it.
Yeah, great. What about polarization?
I think that especially today, that is something that we see being a really, really big problem. And I think it's happening because no one is, for right or for wrong, no one is willing to give up or negotiate their own perspectives. And I think that especially when it comes to large masses of people, when you see, something like our country or an office or whatever, when you start seeing the divide and it's kind of like mob mentality, and that's where polarization gets kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
Because polarization is really hard.
Right. we're entrenched in a perspective, right? I can't agree with Noel. I can't move from this position because that means I'm not I'm not part of this identity anymore if I move from this identity. And holding on to that identity means so much to me that I'm unwilling to question what's going on. And so these are the levels of intensity in terms of conflict, right? What is happening? Is it just a simple question of us having differences of opinion or different ways of approaching a situation? Do we have a misunderstanding, something that can be handled factually, right? Where I think 2, Noel thinks 4 ends up being the right answer, right? But we can factually establish that, or disagreement about the overall way that we're looking at things, right? And then discord is we're really getting into a place where it's personal, right? How I am fundamentally, I don't agree with Noel's way of being, or, there's probably a history where it creates this divide between us, and then polarization. I am just in full opposition to Noel, right? And Noel, the only thing you shared is that I would ask you to consider is that you kind of made it macro, right? You said no one is willing to X or Y or Z or see another person's perspective, and I don't I don't see that as the case. But I think we are fed very polarized messaging, and I think the way that our leadership has been behaving has been extremely polarizing, right? When I see someone come into office, and every administration does this, but they take the executive orders or some of the things that the previous administration did, if it wasn't their administration, and they just change stuff, repealing executive orders and things like that. It's just like, what is motivating that? And anyway, I don't want to get into the topic, right? But just this idea of, because I don't know, voters, right? We are given this Republican, Democrat perspective, right? And if you're not this, you must be this. And if you're not this, you must be this. Everyone I know falls somewhere in between, right? Bernie Sanders, for Pete's sake, right? Democrat. Well, he ran as an independent, but he's a Democrat, and but he's in Vermont and he supports the Second Amendment, right? That's not typically a Democratic platform, right? Or take on the platform, and yet, right, here's someone who he's not clearly over here with Democrat. He's a little bit further this way on this issue, right? And for my money, everyone is between these poles. Everyone is, right? Whether it's social platform or fiscal platform or gun rights, right? What should happen with education? I don't know anyone who's fully on one side or the other, but there does become there's something out there where folks want to broadcast that they are so fully one thing or the other. I don't think it's authentic to our experience as humans. But they get something out of it, right? This is my tribe. This is who I'm with. And I can't be with anyone else. That's polarizing. And it makes our ability to work together, right, Noel, really challenged. Yeah. So those being the levels of conflict, right, where we have differences, we see things differently, there's no discomfort. It's okay, right? Oh, that's how you see it. In terms of misunderstanding, there might be some confusion, right? We might have a communication breakdown, but as you said, as you pointed out, right, pretty easily resolved. When there's a disagreement, it might start to get uncomfortable. It might start to feel some level of discomfort. When there's discord, and we're speaking to some of the points, I think, from the participant manual here, right? It's really beyond the immediate issue. It's bigger than this topic that we're dealing with. When there's discord, there's a history, there are biases, there's something else happening. And then in polarization, it's severe negative emotions. There's little hope for reconciliation when this is what's going on, right? We need to peel back the layers. If for whatever reason I'm polarized with someone else, right? If we can figure out how to set aside all of the things that we're not talking about and talk about the issue at hand, then there's room for that. But because the severe negative emotions are in the way, it creates this like lattice work that keeps one another out. So what do we do about it? How do we address this? How do we get ahead of this, right? How do we think prevention instead of cure? And let's take a look at this video where... No, hold on. Okay. And we'll go to share and we'll make sure.
Hi, what you're going to be seeing right.
There we go. Okay, let me know if you can't hear this. Thank you, Jose.
Hi, what you're going to be seeing right now is a conflict between two community health workers in their workplace.
Cindy, did you ever get a chance to finish the report?
What report are you talking about? Because I know there was a few reports. So what report can you tell me?
The one that's due tomorrow.
You know what? I didn't. It's been really hard for me. I have been in the field a lot, doing a lot of outreach.
I mean, I understand that, but this deadline is tomorrow.
I haven't even had no time to do it inside. I'm barely touching base here.
It's been on your desk for 2 weeks.
Wait, hold on. Who made you in charge?
The deadline is due tomorrow.
You're my equal.
I mean, I understand it, but we have a deadline, and
But who made you in charge?
But I have to keep us on task and stay and focus on deadlines. Deadlines
Why
can't
don't
be
you do
pushed
some of the
back.
outreach? I'm dealing with this guy, one of our patients that just had a stroke, doesn't speak English and doesn't even speak, and is having problems. And I've been trying to get him housed. And I've been working with him every day. You could have told me way before.
I've told you. I've sent you countless emails, and it's sitting. You have a draft sitting on your
You shouldn't even
desk.
told me. You shouldn't even told me. Dr. Allen should have told me or sent me an email. You're not my boss.
Okay. So in that example, what what are we seeing? What level of intensity are we seeing?
Definitely a high intensity, and I definitely felt like they weren't really listening to each other in the video either.
Yeah. So a high level of intensity when we talk about the five sort of areas: differences, misunderstandings, disagreements, discord, or polarization. What level of intensity did it get to? Hero.
Discord.
You think it was discord? Yeah?
5.
Yeah, I'd say between discord and polarization.
Polarization, okay.
Pretty heated.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts? Yeah, it was somewhere in there. Initially a disagreement, right? And it was definitely beyond the immediate issue. You're not my boss. Right, and the I would say the tone, the attitude, that was approached, right? Okay, and so while Nancy and I used this example in our role play, you can see it could have gotten a lot worse, as it did here. And so, and thank you, Nancy, for not beating me up. So what we want to look at right now is how to exist in this sweet spot of compromise, right? Where we're not competing, right? It's not, I'm better than you, you're better than me. We want to lean a lot towards collaboration, but not too far. We don't want to be avoiding the responsibilities, and we don't want to be overly accommodating. All right? We want to find that sweet spot of being appropriately assertive and appropriately cooperative. All right? And so I like this image better. Let's see, who could I have read now? Anybody want to walk through this?
I can.
Go ahead.
Where would you want me to start?
Oh, Amy, go ahead. Just start at the top, work your way down, left to right.
Thomas Kilman conflict model, competing, high assertive, low cooperation. Only one can win, and it had better be me. Avoiding low assertive, low cooperation. Can we talk about this some other time? Collaborating, high assertive, high cooperation. I reckon we can both get what we need. Accommodating, low assertive, high cooperation. Okay, let's just do it your way. Compromising, medium assertive, medium cooperative. Can we just meet in the middle of this?
Yep. Great. And you see it's on the same axis or the same set of axes as before, right? We've got more assertive, less cooperative, more cooperative. What do you think about this? How does this hit you? Does this make sense? Do you have questions? Okay. Conflict competence. Who could we have read here? Thank you, Amy.
I can read.
Go ahead, Emily.
In organizational context, conflict competence involves creating a culture that supports the cool down, slow down, and engage constructively model. This includes aligning mission, policies, training programs, performance standards, and reward structures to reinforce the conflict competence model. It also includes creating integrated conflict management systems to support these cultural changes.
Whoa. All right. Thank you very much. So, yeah, here we go. So we'll take a look at this concept of mind mapping. Right? Thank you, Emily. Starting in the center with an image of the topic, using at least 3 colors, we're going to use images, symbols, codes, and dimensions throughout your mind map. Select keywords and print using upper and lowercase letters. Each word or image is best alone and sitting on its own line. The lines should be connected, starting from the central image. The central lines are thicker, organic, and thinner as they radiate out from the center, right? Like roots. Make lines the same length as the word or image they support. Use multiple colors throughout the mind map for visual stimulation and also to encode or group. And develop your own personal style of mind mapping. Use emphasis and show associations in your mind map. And keep the mind map clear by using radial hierarchy, right? No numerical order or outlines to embrace your branches, right? Oh, and I think there is no, I'm not missing a slide. Okay. Okay. So in the activity of mind mapping, which we would do in a live scenario, a lot more easily. Do you guys in your breakout rooms, you have access to annotation, right? Do you have? That's all right. We'll move on. And so we were talking about this scenario of cool down, right? This sort of approach to conflict of cool down, slow down, engage constructively. Are there times when you have used this to address conflict in your group? Rosalie, I see you nodding, so I'm going to call on you.
I had, it was a time that it was in, first it was a co-worker, you know, it was some things were said, and I felt like kind of like out of place, which it became kind of conflict on a point in time, and then we actually talked about it, but it was like I was still like very angry because the way that I was like somebody said something, you know, like bringing negative, and I took it very. But then I have to think, and my brain started thinking, and I'm like, I have to be a bigger person, because if I say something the wrong way, it's gonna escalate to the point that it's gonna go south. And the only thing that was thinking in my head, like I was thinking, it was just like, who's gonna be taking care of my bills if I say something that is gonna just provoke me to do something? I had to like, you know, trying to think, my brain was thinking, going crazy left and right. And I'm like, okay, workplace, think mindful of how I say things. It was something that it was said to me in a negative way, but I had to take it as a learning experience because of the field that I'm working on. Does that make sense?
It does. And so in this process, what I heard you describe was, so first of all, you got activated, right? You felt treated poorly, right? So you're upset. But you thought about it. And so that was your cool down period, your slow down period. And there was some opportunity that you had to engage with that person constructively, where you needed to collaborate, have a conversation, whatever it was. And you made the choice to recognize what you're feeling, but not allow that to poison your collaboration. Did I get that right? Is that more or less how it went down?
Right in the spot, you did.
Oh, I did my best. Emily's giving me the eyes. We know what that means. We're gonna come back at 5 past. So 10:05. We'll see you guys then.